As the Seder drags on and the night gets late, everyone anxiously looks at their watches, and all of a sudden the Haggadah reaches a climax with Rabbi Gamliel quoting the Mishnah in Pesachim. Rabbi Gamliel Haomer Chol Haomer Shlosha Dvarim Elu BePesach LeYotzu Dei Chavaso. And anyone who doesn't mention these three fundamental ideas of Pesach, Matzah, and Maror at the Seder has not fulfilled his obligation. And there's an obvious question that one has to think about as to what obligation has he not fulfilled if he fails to mention Pesach, Matzah, and Maror. The Rambam points out that if you don't mention Pesach, Matzah, and Maror, then you have not fulfilled your obligation of Haggadah. You have not fulfilled your obligation of Sipur Yetzias Mitzrayim. Alternatively, we find that the Ran disagrees with the Rambam. And he says that in order to fulfill your obligation of Pesach, Matzah, and Maror, you must understand the reasons behind those mitzvos. It's a completely separate idea, not connected to Sipur Yetzias Mitzrayim, but to fulfill the mitzvos halayla, one must understand what they are doing. The Dalgam Ravava points out an afkamina between these two approaches. What would be if somebody stayed up very late, but unfortunately wasn't able to start the Seder until moments before Chatzos? Would they be able to fill their mitzvos of Pesach, Matzah, and Maror without understanding the reasons, and only discuss the reasons afterwards? According to the Rambam, you'd be fine, because the reasons are only an obligation of Sipur Yetzias Mitzrayim. But according to the Ran, one wouldn't be able to understand the reasons, one wouldn't be able to fulfill the mitzvos without understanding the reasons. There's a third approach we found in Rishonim in Tosfos. Tosfos tells us that there's an obligation to mention Pesach, Matzah, and Maror, just like there's an obligation to be Mekadesh Shabbos with words. Not only do you have to do the Korban Pesach, but you have to discuss it as well. The Binyan Tzion points out, if we learn like Tosfos, then when it comes Pesach Sheni, and you're bringing a Korban Pesach on Pesach Sheni, you would have the obligation to mention Pesach, Matzah, and Maror on Pesach Sheni as well. However, according to the Rambam and the Ran, perhaps one could argue that there wouldn't be an obligation on Pesach Sheni to mention Pesach, Matzah, and Maror. Have a Chag Kosher v'Sameach.